What is up, you awesome kisters? It is CistReactZ here. Don't ask, alright? Just don't ask. Like, I just got out the shower, videos still gotta go on, alright? We're reacting to Game Theory, FNAF, The Origins of Evil. So make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to Game Theorist, and comment down below. Do the same for my channel. Let's get into this bot.
I've done it. I've solved FNAF, and the clue that brings it all together is this.
Don't you hate getting killed by obscure secondary characters?
Jesus. Hello, Internet.
Why does it need to be
Welcome
that
to
loud?
Game Theory, where today I'm just gonna get straight to the point. This episode was supposed to be our final timeline, but you know what?
Yeah,
it's
final,
not quite there
final.
yet.
There's
I
never a
think
final
we're gonna
with
have it
that.
ready for next week. There's just a few wrinkles that we need to iron out
guys,
about
let's just be
Elizabeth's
honest. There's
death
never a
specifically,
final
but
with
otherwise,
matpat.
I feel really good about everything we've pieced together so far. That said, I wanted to put this episode up first regardless because it dives into a section of the timeline that's likely gonna be controversial, which is also a bad thing because it's the beginning of the timeline. Nothing like starting off on the wrong foot, you know? So in order to head that one off at the pass, let's just start talking about it now, shall we? Last episode, I brought up how the team and I have been tackling this whole timeline project. Basically, that we've broken down everything into 3 key sections. The foundation of Freddy's, the Afton era,
Wait, did I
and
watch that?
Purple Guy. In that episode, we dug hard into the last chunk, trying to figure out the recent history with things like FNAF VR and Security Breach. But even trickier is the first chunk, the foundation of Freddy's. You see, at this point, we all have a general basic knowledge of the games, right? Kids die, animatronics get possessed, all that good stuff. But here, that foundational stuff right at the beginning,
Yeah, the
that's
80s were a crazy
murkiest
time.
because honestly, there's not a lot that's immediately clear that we can go off of. Sure, there's a couple of lines from Phone Guy, maybe a sentence or two from the novels, but otherwise, it seems to be about it. How did William Afton and Henry Emily start working together? Were they rivals?
Yeah, we need a
Why
Fredbear's
did
game.
Afton start killing in the first place? Was Fredbear's Family Diner truly the first location?
It has to
These are
be. There
questions
can't be any
that
more
seem
before
important
that,
for
or
us
else
to
this is gonna get
answer,
more
and honestly, if you're
complicated.
looking at where the timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's really begins, it's with those sorts of questions.
Plus, it seems like the oldest
problem is that
location,
the
too.
answers just might not exist anywhere in the canon yet. Or so I initially thought, which brings
Here we
us
go,
to today's
the lore
episode.
book
I
again.
suspect that there may be a way
I
to
mean, the
answer
survival
some,
logbook.
if not all of
Or
those
was that just an
questions
asset?
using a mix of evidence from the games, the books, and real-life lore.
I think he was
In
just
the
using that as an
process, I
edit.
think it'll
Never
help
mind.
us get a better understanding of William Afton's motives, while also outlining a rough sequence of events that'll ultimately help place locations and other things when I tackle the full timeline of the series next week. And all of it hinges on one thing: a set of obscure secondary characters named the Mediocre Melodies. Orville
Really?
Elephant, Ned Bear, Pig Patch, Happy Frog, and of course, Mr. Hippo.
Sometimes
No.
a story is just a
No.
story. You try to read into every little thing and find meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I know,
Yeah,
Mr. Hippo, I
yeah.
get it. That has been leveled at me more
Jesus.
times than I can count. But I think in this case, we actually didn't read into you enough. You see, when the Mediocres
There's no
were
way.
first
We listened to 'em
introduced
for like
in
6
Pizzeria
minutes.
Simulator, we, as the community, largely dismissed them. And why wouldn't we? This is a game where you're pulling animatronics out of a dumpster. Trash and the gang are literally made of garbage. Why would we think that some random barnyard-themed characters would be worth our attention when there was already so much established lore inside of the thing? We beat the game, we solved the lore, we moved on. Then Ultimate Custom Night released, and there they were again. It was strange to see him fill so many slots, but I don't know, there was also Trash in the Gang, and Music Man! Other
loves that
random
meme.
pulls from the character deep cuts, so
And
it
Dee Dee.
was just Scott trying to fill out the roster. But then something unexpected happened. Well, they were mostly treated as a joke. If you died to them, every once in a while they'd give voice to the most important character and mystery from the game. The one you shouldn't have killed, Cassidy.
We've only just begun. I will never
love Ned
let
Bears,
you
I think that's his
leave.
name.
I will
This is how
never
it
let you
feels.
rest.
It was a huge revelation, and the lines that they spoke ultimately helped us to
never
determine
let
that
you
Custom Night
rest.
was William Afton's endless torment at the hands of the spirits inside the Golden Freddy suit. But again, none of us ever stopped to consider why them? Why these characters? Why were they the ones that Cassidy was choosing to speak through? Why are they here? Well,
Maybe 'cause
after
they're the
doing a
oldest
lot of
characters,
research
then?
for the grand overall timeline, now I think I know. The Mediocre Melodies were Henry's creation from a time before he and William started working together. When the two men
Oh.
merged their ideas together to form one company, the Mediocres became temporary characters at Fredbear's Family Diner before eventually being retired and largely forgotten. Oh, yeah! That is a lot of big swings that I'm making with some massive assumptions. So let's just
kinda makes
rewind and
sense,
take
like-
it one step at a time, shall
They
we?
would be like the
First,
beta
how do we know that the
animatronics
Mediocre
before-
Melodies belong to Henry? Well, let's just look at their
Like
designs.
Freddy's
It's very
became a
simple.
concept?
They're similar to the Endo 01 designs from the FNAF 1 animatronics, but even more rudimentary, with less flexible joints and less complex wiring. But the important point here is that for each one, the upper jaw and the lower jaw are entirely separate, operating using a very basic hinge towards the back of the head or two metal bars that slide up and down.
And they do kind of give me FNAF 1 vibes because of the whole, you can see like the endoskeleton teeth in their mouth too.
Along the side. And you see, that right there is what tells us they belong to Henry. Well, there are plenty of animatronics that fall into a nebulous zone of who designed them. There are a few pieces of tech that we can definitely trace back to their original creator. The Funtime animatronics, for instance, definitely came from Afton. Not only were they designed with the intent of luring and capturing children, something that just doesn't jive with Henry, but the blueprints outright have Afton Robotics written in the corner. Not much you can do to deny that one. Sound illusion discs? Another Afton creation, considering the backs of them are stamped with his company name as we see in the graphic novels. But the one I'm most interested in today is Lefty, the animatronic designed by Henry used to capture his daughter the puppet during FNAF 6. That was clearly not an Afton project. This was purely Henry's doing in secret. So, knowing that, did you happen to notice the two straight metal rods in the schematics with the jaw fully detached from the top of the head? It's an exact match for the design of Happy Frog. It's a Henry signature. But why does that matter? Well, the designs of the mediocres also perfectly match up to the first generation of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. We know that the Wizards were the earliest form of our core 4 animatronics. These were the ones that had children stuffed inside of them and got possessed. They outright tell us this fact in Ultimate Custom Nights.
I still don't know why they kept those old things. It's terrifying.
But have you ever stopped to look?
Like, to my understanding, the toy animatronics were made, and before the toy animatronics and before the whole FNAF 2 location, you know, there was Fredbears. And that's probably how they got those suits. Why would they keep them in the back? Just destroy them. They look so creepy and terrifying, man.
Look at how the Wizards were constructed.
They should have destroyed them.
They use the exact same techniques as the mediocre melodies.
If I was wrong about my timeline, let me know.
The tops of their head
FNAF's
and
confusing.
their jaws. Withered Freddy and Foxy.
I should go back because I was.
Have you ever stopped to look at how the Wizards were constructed? They use the exact same techniques as the mediocre melodies. They have a full separation between the tops of their head and their jaws. Withered Freddy and Foxy both have the hinge opening in the back like we see with Pig Patch, and Withered Chica follows the Happy Frog and Lefty model with bars in the jaw to aid in opening and closing the mouth. Think this is just a coincidence? Look at Chica in other games. Chica in FNAF 1, a fundamentally different design. Funtime Chica, definitely not. Toy Chica, nope. The only other time we see this sort of fully separated head design for animatronics is with the FNAF 6 Rockstar animatronics. Ones that, again, we know were built by Henry as part of his plan to lure everyone back to his pizzeria trap. In short, the animatronic design seems to be giving us a timeline of events. The mediocres and Wizards were built by Henry early in the timeline of the games. Eventually, Afton starts to influence the designs more and more until Henry comes back to design the robots that were used for his pizzeria trap. But again, I ask, why does any of this matter? Isn't this just a minor detail? Me looking for connections where they don't really matter? No. Knowing that the Wizards and the mediocres share a design seems like it might help explain another part of the lore, Happiest Day. In FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, we walk past children wearing masks that match the coloring and rough shape of the mediocres.
That's kind of cooking right
Pig,
now. I'm
green
listening.
Frog, purple hippo, orange elephant.
I'm not saying
blue...
much.
Okay, not all of them match. But here's the thing, I'm not the one pointing that detail out. This is actually coming from Scott Cawthon himself. In the Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Guide, the character description for each mediocre melody calls this out as something worth noting. Quote, it's unconfirmed, but a child in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame appears to be wearing a Happy Frog mask, Orville mask, Mr. Hippo mask.
What?
Every single entry mentions this specific detail. Seems like an odd fan theory to call so much attention to. And remember, Happiest Day is an exact recreation of the FNAF 4 pizzeria. We enter at the stage where Crying Child's bitten, we pass 3 tables, there's a bit of a gap, and then the final birthday table for the cake that's gonna set Crying Child's soul free. It seems to suggest that at some point the mediocre melodies existed in one version of the restaurant right alongside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. But how could all that be? Well, it's easier than you might think. In the story The Puppet Carver, we read about the Pizza Playground, a restaurant that seems to predate or be a competitor to Freddy's. And in it, we see that the franchise uses very rudimentary animatronics that break down a lot. There's a pig with a banjo, an off-brand bear named Baron Von Bear, and an unknown bird animatronic. It's the mediocre melodies, guys. Pig Patch, Ned Bear, and hold on, on, there's no bird in the mediocre melodies. Unless, of course, we're talking about Chica. What this story seems to heavily suggest is that Chica started at a different pizza franchise and eventually crossed over into Freddy's, becoming popular enough to eventually join the core four. Also working at that pizza playground is a talented creator named Porter, someone who seems to have the ability to make wood-based animatronics come to life. In short, it's the book's stand-in for Henry. Henry may not be the most technologically advanced creator out there, but whatever he creates contains this certain X factor about it, a spark of life. It's how he's able to create endoskeletons out of nothing but wood. No power, no nothing, just wood and a childlike imagination. This, I think, starts to give us an important piece in the puzzle. Afton was the business guy, a tech bro who was smart and could build machines able to mimic voices and transform and launch giant claws out of their stomachs for no apparent reason. But it was Henry who had the pure love of his craft, that intangible thing that just couldn't.
I don't know if matpat will go over it, but man, something really did mess with him. And by him, I mean Afton. Like when matpat kind of explains the designs, it kind of really makes me think. Like, I haven't really put too much thought into it. I was just like, okay, that's just Afton. That's purple guy stuff to make claws that come out of the stomachs to get kids. But, like, it really does make you think, bro, what mind was so tortured to even think to make something like a claw coming out of your stomach, voices that mimic the parents? Like, what happened to bro, man? What happened to him?
Be replicated.
Was it the crying child dying? Like, what?
Crazy. In the Silver Eyes novel, we read a bit about Afton's old journals, that they were, quote, full of raving paranoia. Passages about Henry that ranged from wild jealousy to near worship, which now gets us moving towards a motive. You see, one thing that I kept getting stuck on in the building of a timeline was the question of why. Why does Afton kill? And out of everyone, why does he kill Henry's daughter, Charlie, specifically? She is one of, if not the first victim of the entire series. So why does Afton do it? Just because he's evil? Just because he's drunk from the bar at Junior's? No. I think Afton both loved and hated his business partner. He admired him and his magic, but also despised him for his success. This contradiction starts to point us to Afton's motive for murder. It also finally helps give us a framework for the early parts of their story. Loyal theorists, let me now point us to the most obvious place that we should have been looking for lore this entire time: the history of the Chuck E. Cheese franchise. Because in a game...
Didn't matpat do this before? And it was like a whole meme where he was talking about Chuck E. Cheese's and he had Chuck E. Cheese like blacked out like that with smoke or something. I forgot.
All about animatronic pizza restaurants. Why would we not look to see what creative inspiration Scott might have gotten from the real-life franchise that started it all? I am so dumb. It took me researching an episode over on food theory to finally realize that I should have at least considered this at some point during the last 7 years of solving FNAF. Major head test moment. Anyway, I did exactly that, and what I learned was enlightening, to say the least. You see, what we now know of as Chuck E. Cheese actually started as the product of a feud between two rival animatronic pizza restaurants, Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza Place. Pizza Time was founded by a smart businessman who wanted to recreate Disneyland's Country Bear Jamboree. In the end, their onstage show wound up soulless and had no solid theme. Showbiz Pizza, meanwhile, had a creator who built better robotic attractions that were full of life. They also had a solid theme where everyone had southern accents and a lot of charm. I mean, just watch the clips and the difference is immediately clear.
Like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, you get it?
See, we're all up here on the stage, and we can all turn, go around a big circle together. See, like this, our feet aren't screwed to the floor or bolted down. We can move. We got more moves than a can of worms. And then that old 1-2.
Then they all start to just run at children off the stage, scar them more.
To me, the battle between these two real-life pizza places, these two men, sounds a lot like the battle between William and Henry.
I wouldn't go there now, especially with all this FNAF stuff in my brain.
Disney's Bear Show versus a talented artist that was building animatronics with actual life and
creepy
good
enough
southern accents.
I was just waiting for you to drop your guard.
Even small details of the real-life story map nicely onto games, like the fact that these pizza places had small cabaret stages off to the side for extra acts to get added later, just like how Foxy stands alone in Pirate Cove. A separate act that we see was the last one added to the core group of 4. In real life, Pizza Time Theater, the one I most associate with William Afton, went heavily into debt and was forced to merge with Showbiz Pizza. That meant that, at least for a while, all the animatronics existed under one roof, but because the characters from Pizza Pizza Time were stronger for branding, specifically Chuck E. Cheese, that's the ones that they ultimately moved forward with. I suspect that something similar happened in the games. William's bear-themed restaurant went heavily in debt. He gets saved by his rival Henry, and the two merge their restaurants together to create Fazbear Entertainment. Chica, a mediocre melody, officially joins Fredbear's cast of friends, and the rest are slowly phased out to obscurity. And William, angry and bitter, never truly lives down the humiliation of his failure, prompting him to lash out in a drunken rage against Charlie one night behind the pizzeria. This feels right to me, to set up William as more than just an evil purple guy. This flow of events actually gives him a reason to want to kill, a motive. It also aligns with a lot of the interviews that Steel Wool Studios has been doing recently. J-Top, creative director at Steel Wool, recently acknowledged how important it is for your horror villain to be an actual, fully fleshed out, tragic character.
Try not to set out to make a cool looking villain, you know? Go make a monster that have a reason for it. Look at like anthology horror. Here's somebody doing something really, really bad. Like they murdered someone. Something happens, often ironically, that then comes back to bite them. A creature is created, a situation is created, and then they're judged and they get their just desserts. Every big, horror icon, it essentially fits that structure in a way. Why is Freddy Krueger popular? Well, it's a revenge story, isn't it? Miss Voorhees, it's a revenge story. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out of nowhere to just
I know about Freddy Krueger, just not the story. But the Ms. Voorhees, I know
William
about the story.
if I'm right, follows this exact pattern. His jealousy over Henry's skill causes him to lash out, which in turn dominoes to him building the very robots that'll eventually take Elizabeth and his crying child's son away from him. The other thing that this mediocre melody timing issue may help explain is Cassidy's death. In the Fazbear Frights books, there's Andrew, who's basically the book stand-in for Cassidy. I know we're always supposed to take things in the books with a grain of salt, but Andrew here is an angry spirit that keeps William's soul tethered to a hellish purgatory so it can be punished again and again and again. He's also known to have had his body stuffed inside of Golden Freddy, so really the connections between the two aren't subtle. But Andrew
It's crazy that that's the story I left off on and so many books came out.
First, he wears an alligator mask. Second, and even more strangely, it's repeatedly made clear that his soul is attached not to an animatronic or an endoskeleton or anything like that, but to a battery pack, of all things. Now that is unusual.
What?
He's stuffed into Golden Freddy, but his soul is in a battery pack.
I don't remember that
Where in
part.
this franchise do we see animatronics using battery packs, let alone off-branded animals using battery packs? Oh wait, it's the mediocre melodies. Could they possibly have been around during the missing children's incident? Yes. Given what we already talked about with the Generation 1 Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica matching the designs of the mediocre melodies, it's certainly possible. We also see that the Golden Freddy suit has the same Henry style of design. In both the Fazbear Frights illustrations, as well as FNAF 4's minigames, we see that Golden Freddy has the separated jaw controlled by two straight bars, just like Lefty and just like Happy Frog. And last but certainly not least, we come all the way back around to the point that I started this whole episode with. Cassidy speaks through them, of all characters. Not through Golden Freddy, not through Fredbear, through the mediocre melodies, the animatronics with a battery pack. Just thought it was an interesting series of connections. So anyway, those were some stray observations that I've been kicking around about the mediocres. What do you think? Do they have greater lore importance to the story than we initially thought, or are they just meant to be a joke? Am I just falling victim to everything that Mr. Hippo warned me against? Let me know down in the comments below now, because this is your last chance for them to affect the final FNAF timeline for 2022. Our interpretation of all the events in the series up to now.
If y'all want to know my opinion, I mean, it's not. It wouldn't be too out of the ordinary, I think, for them to actually have some type of significance. Because, yeah, when he explained it and put all the facts next to it, yeah, they would be like the beta animatronics that were right next to OG Freddy, Foxy, and Chica. So, I mean, they could possibly have been around when Afton started murdering.
That episode will be coming in the next week or two. I swear, I am not putting it off anymore. We are gonna plow through this thing to the very end.
Itches.
We've gotta finish it. Gotta finish it, Matt. We've gotta finish it. You're so close. Just do it. So make sure you subscribe to know when that one is uploaded. And in the meantime, remember, stay hydrated. I appreciate that today's theory might be a lot to swallow. Fortunately, you can wash it down with help from today's sponsor, Air Up. In the FNAF world.
All right, yeah, he told, yeah, make sure y'all drink water too. All right, I think that's the end of the video, basically.
All right, so yeah, if you guys want me to, it's like how that's the final image. If you guys want me to react to the little final timeline 2022 by matpat, make sure you guys hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe for more TV Comic History today, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.